Okay, good evening everyone. We are holding over here in the last Parsha in Sefer Bereshis, PARSHAS VAYECHI. Vayechi, depending on how you say it. And there is a very moving scene in the Parsha that comes somewhat towards the beginning. Yakov Avinu is giving brachas, he's giving blessings to his grandchildren, Ephraims and Menashas. And the verse says the following idea. V'yevarchem b'yomahu, Yakov blessed these grandchildren on that day, Lemor saying, Becha, in you, Yevarech Yisrael. In you, Ephraims and Menashas, the Jewish people are going to bless. Lemor, they will say about their own children, Yisimcha Elokim ke'Ephraims and Menashas, that Hashem should make you like Menashas and Ephraims, or Ephraims and Menashas. V'yosem Ephraims livnei Menashas, and Yaakov Avinu placed Ephraims in front of Menashas. We'll get to the explanation a little bit later, but Rashi says over the following ideas. Haba levarech es banav, someone who comes to bless his children. Yevarchem b'bichasam, he will bless them with this blessing of Ephraims and Menashas. V'yomer ish lebenoi, a father will say to his son, Yisimcha Elokim ke'Ephraims and Menashas, Hashem should make you like Ephraims and Menashas. And of course the question is quite obvious. There are many great people that we encounter in the Chumash. We're holding over here right now by the end of all of Sefer Bereshis. We've had Avram Avinu, we've had Yitzchak, Yakov, we had all of the Shvatim, all of the tribes, who had Yosef Asad. And yet when Yakov gives a brach to Ephraims and Menashas, these are already the grandchildren, the later generations, he says that whenever a father will come to bless his sons, it's going to be with the bracha, they should become like Menashas and Ephraims and Menashas. What was so unique about these two young children, or young men, that all of the brachas in Klal Yisrael are going to be like them? So first we have to understand what's going on in this scene over here in the Torah. And that is that it's the end of Yaakov Avinu's life, as we know, and he is coming to an end, and his son Yosef brings his two children, the oldest one being Menashas, the younger one being Ephraims. He brings them to his father, to their grandfather, and he says, Tati, I want you to give a bracha, to give a blessing to my children. And his father Yaakov Avinu says, of course, it will be my pleasure to bless my grandchildren. So Yaakov Avinu is sitting there, and Yosef brings his sons, the oldest Menashas, the younger one Ephraims, and he puts Menashas on the side of the right hand of Yaakov Avinu, because the right is always significant of strength. And he takes Ephraims and he puts him on the left side of Yaakov Avinu. He'll get the weaker hand in the bracha. And as we know, the famous story goes that when it comes time to give the bracha, Yaakov Avinu goes like this. And he puts the right hand over the head of Ephraims, the younger son, and the left hand over the head of Menashas, the oldest son. And Yaakov Avinu, and Yosef says to his father, Abba, you're doing it wrong. This is the older one, that's the younger one. And Yaakov says, don't worry. I know exactly what it is that I'm doing. Don't worry, the older one, Menashas, he'll be great, but this one, Ephraims, the younger one, he'll be even greater. And Rashi points out, Yoshua, the great student of Moshe Rabbeinu, will be the offspring of Ephraims. He will be the one that leads the Jewish people into Eretz Yisrael after all of the years in the wilderness, and that makes him the great leader of the Jewish people, and therefore Ephraims has a schus, has a merit over Menashas, that he will be the father, the grandfather, great-great-grandfather of Yehoshua ben Nun. So he says, don't worry, I know what it is that I'm doing. That's not a reason to bless your children on Friday night, that they should be like Ephraims and Menashas. That's nice. Ephraims is the younger one, Menashas is the older one. Yaakov Avinu saw in his in his prophecy who's going to be the greater one, so therefore he puts the right hand onto the younger one, and therefore we make a brach like this every single Friday night. That's not enough of a compelling reason to bless our children like Ephraim and Menashas. If we go through the Torah clearly, we will find that there is a theme that keeps coming up among siblings. And that is, there's an enormous amount of sibling rivalry in the Torah. From the very beginning of time, you have a young man, two young men, Cain and Hevel. These are the first children of the world. And Cain brings his offering to Hashem, some of the produce from the field. Hevel brings the great animal offerings. And the next thing we know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Hevel, beautiful offering that you brought me. Cain, could have been better. Cain becomes jealous of his brother, rises up in the field, and he kills his brother Hevel. Not the greatest beginning of sibling rivalry. And it goes on. You have that Avram and Sarah get married for many years, they don't have children, so they have a son named Yishmael that comes through the maidservant Hagar. Yishmael is not the greatest child in the world. Finally, together they have a son whose name is Yitzchak, and Sarah Imeinu sees that Yishmael is not a good influence at all on her son, and therefore she says, out of the house. And the fight between Yishmael and Yitzchak and the Jewish people will be something that lasts until this very day. As the Mefarshim point out, there have been 4 major exiles that the Jewish people have gone through. Yishmael, which is the Arab exile, is never referred to on its own as a single exile. But rather Yishmael, who represents the Arab nation, they have been part of the exile of the Jewish people in every single exile, every gullus that we go into. Wherever we have been, they are always there. It's always part and parcel of our struggle. Then you have, Yitzchak has 2 sons, Esav and Yaakov Avinu. And we know that they were battling already in the womb. Who's coming out first? Who's going to be the oldest? Who will get the birthright? Who will be the master of spirituality? Who will be the man of the earth? And they fought and they battled. Esav comes out first, and yet he's never up to par to be the leader of the Jewish people. And so Yaakov Avinu is always bantering him. Get rid of your birthright. What do you need it for? Anyway, you're going to die. What do you need it for? And eventually he trades in, or he sells his birthright for a bowl of soup and olam hazeh in this world. And Yaakov is on the run from Esav for years and years and years and years, until they finally meet, and maybe, according to one opinion, maybe a little bit of peace is made. But there is a halacha that Esav Sainias Yaakov, Esav despises Yaakov, despises Jewish people. We'll never get past that. And then we come to perhaps the most perplexing of it all. Yaakov Avinu has 12 sons, and they are the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop. And these are going to be the men that the offspring of all the Jewish people are going to come from. And Yaakov Avinu is lauded as being the only one of our forefathers who had 12 perfect tzaddikim. Avram Avinu had a Yishmael, Yitzchak had an Esav, Yaakov has 12 sons that are the master tribes of Klal Yisrael. And then these brothers, somehow, in some shape or form, they decide that this Yosef guy is a problem over here. We have to take him, toss him in the pit, sell him down as a slave to Egypt, out of sight, out of mind, let's get rid of Yosef. So the Or HaChaim writes, earlier on in PARSHAS VAYECHI, what motivated the brothers to do such a thing? How do 10 brothers at the time take the brother that is the prized possession of their father and decide to chuck him into the pit, tell their father that he's dead, and get rid of him and think they're never going to have to deal with him ever again? So as we know the famous story, he told them their dreams. The first dream was that he's standing in the middle. He's standing in the middle of the field, and 11 stalks come and they bow down to him. 10 of the stalks are the brothers. 1 stalk is the father, and they all bow down to him. And the pasuk says that when they heard such dreams that are coming from Yosef Sadiq, So it says, Vayisanu, they hated Yosef for saying such dreams. How could their brothers say such a thing? What a chutzpah to say such a dream. We're going to bow down to him. Our father's going to bow down to him. But then he has another dream. And the other dream is that there are 10 stars, and there's a moon and a sun. The 10 stars represent 11 stars. Was Binyamin already? The 11 stars represent the brothers. The moon represents his mother Rachel, and the sun represents the father Yakov Avinu. When the brothers heard the second dream, the verse says, "V'yikanu vayecha v'aviv shames adavar." The brothers became jealous of Yosef. V'aviv, but Yaakov Avinu shames adavar, he guarded the words of this dream. Says to Arachaim, I don't understand. Initially, when Yosef starts telling over the dreams, it says that the brothers hated Yosef. Then he tells over the second dream, and it says, "Vayikanu," they were jealous of him. What switched? Do you hate him, or are you jealous of him? So the Arachaim writes, "B'cholim zeh," in this dream that he tells over, he sira safik shayelem b'cholim rishon she ba'cholim l'sibas machshavaisav. When they heard Yosef tell over the first dream, you have these stalks, they're in the field, they're bowing down to Yosef. They said, this guy is Meshuggah. What does he think? He's coming up with these dreams. He probably was watching too much Netflix before he went to sleep last night, and his mind, he's having these crazy dreams at night. And so therefore they hated him, that he would even have the audacity to share such a dream with them. A dream where he wants to make himself the ruler and everyone's bowing down to him. What a chutzpah to say such a thing. Deep, deep down in their hearts, they said to themselves, but what if Yosef's dream is right? What if he's really destined to be the leader and we are destined to be second to him? What if his role in this world is to be a leader over Klal Yisrael and we're just going to be the emissaries and the servants of Yosef Asad? How could such a thing be? How could the youngest of our brothers be in such a position and we're going to be lower than him? So on one hand, they hate him that he would say such things. On the other hand, deep down, they were concerned that maybe there was truth to the dream. But you know what they said? We'll write it off. It's a wild dream. Every dream, like we know the Gemara says, has some kind of ruach shtus, some foolishness in it. This is his foolishness. However, comes along Yosef in his second dream. And in the second dream, not only does he say that all the brothers are bowing down to him, but he's saying that Tati and Mommy are bowing down to me as well. My parents also are bowing down to me. When they heard this, says the Arachaim, they realized that whatever they thought before was maybe just a dream and it's not really going to happen, they realized that it's going to happen. He never would have thought that he's going to rule over his father. His father was his Rebbe, his father taught him all the Torah, his father taught him everything. It's impossible that Yosef would have believed that he could have a dream and then tell over the dream and make the whole thing up, that his father's going to bow down to him as well. Elamai what? This itself was a sign. It was a clear sign to the brothers that the dreams of Yosef were min hashamayim, were from Hashem. And as a result of that, kina, jealousy, entered into the hearts of the brothers. Sibling rivalry, at its best or at its worst, is usually spawned on by when one brother or one sibling becomes jealous of the other one. This one is good looking, this one is smart, this one makes the money, this is the one that everybody likes, this is the one that's easy to get along with, this is the one who looks good in anything that he wears. That's the one. And me, what am I? I don't have this, I don't have that, I'm not like this, I'm not like that. It creates jealousy, even if one brother got the good looks and the other brother got the brains. But sometimes the brains are complimented and sometimes the good looks are complimented. So the good-looking brother gets jealous whenever the brains are complimented, and the brainy one gets jealous every time that the good looks are complimented, and so on and so forth. Says the Chaim that the source of all of the downfall of the brothers doing what they did to Yosef Asad was because they allowed themselves to get jealous because they did not want to accept what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was sending a message, min hashemayim, from the heavens. This is who Yosef is going to be, and this is who you are going to be. When a person cannot accept the messages that are coming from on high, when a person cannot allow himself to have that amun and that bitachon, that belief and that trust in Hashem, that Hashem sets up the details, He sets up the situation exactly the way that it's supposed to be, and you see somebody having something else that you yourself don't have, that's when the jealousy begins to settle in. But if you would be a person who realized Hashem runs the world, Hashem gave me a salary of 5 figures a year. He gave my brother a salary of 7 figures a year. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me brains that are adequate, but He gave this one over here super brains. Hashem made me semi-good looking. He made this one super good looking. This guy goes on a diet, he loses the weight, he starts pumping iron, he looks like he could be, poster boy for the Beach Boys. This, whatever goes on over here, it never works like that. Says the Torah, when a person is able to accept that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has destined for different people different things, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants every single person to become that person that they are supposed to be, and sometimes we are in a situation where we're going to be a leader, sometimes we're in a situation where we're going to be a supporter, sometimes we're going to be successful, sometimes somebody will be more successful than us. That's irrelevant. What is relevant is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that is planning and He's making it. It's going to be in a particular way. The brothers of Yosef did not want to accept that reality. And because that they did not accept that reality, they ended up doing such a crime where they took their own brother and they tried to throw him away and all of his dreams together with him. At the end of the day, though, as we know, the dreams all came true. Yosef, in fact, was the leader. They did come down to Egypt and bow down to him. His father bows down to him as well, because that was the destiny that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had in mind and had planned for Yosef Asad. Menashas and Ephraims, 2 boys, the only sons of Yosef. They are born in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. They have nobody else around, only their father Yosef. They have no friends, they have no family, they have no siblings, they have no cousins, nothing. No yeshiva, no rebbeim, nothing around them. They're learning everything in life from their father Yosef Sadiq. It comes time for Yakov to give them a bracha. Menashas is older, Ephraims is younger. The way that it should work is the older one gets the better bracha, or the more bracha from his grandfather, and the younger one will get the left hand, the lesser one. Yakov goes like this: Ephraim, you get the bracha bigger, Menashas, you get the lesser. What is the reaction of Menashas to this great slight to his honor? What does he say? What does he do? How does he begin to complain about the fact that he lost out on the main bracha, the main blessing from his grandfather? The Torah says absolutely nothing. Menashas watches the holiest of hands in the world go like this. He sees his father Yosef, oh, Abba, you're really... And Yakov says, I know exactly what I'm doing. Don't worry, this one here, he'll be great also. But this one, from him will come Yehoshua. Menashe says nothing, and neither does Ephraim. Ephraim doesn't gloat. He doesn't feel super special. He doesn't rub it in to his brother right now that I'm greater than you. Look how our grandfather, the Zayda, look what he did. Not a single word from either of them. They stand there quietly and they accept the bracha from Yakov Avinu. Says Yakov, if these two young men who come from a very stormy family, a family that is filled going all the way back to the beginning of time with Cain and Hevel, people that are fighting and arguing. You look at the Dor HaMabul, the generation of the flood, the generation of the tower. These are people, there was always division, there was fighting, there was jealousy, people having issues. He's not an Esav and a Yakov. He's not a Yishmael and a Yitzchak. They are Ephraim and Menashe, and they're accepting the bracha that the Zayda, that Yaakov Avinu is giving them, and they don't say a word. Through these two children, all of Klal Yisrael will be blessed. From these two children, all of the Jewish people, every father will want to bless his son on the night of Shabbos and say, you, my son, and you, my son, and you, my son, you, my children, who are all different, and you're all special, and you all have your talents and your abilities, each and every one of you. Be happy and be satisfied with who HaKadosh Baruch Hu made you and who you are. If you would try to be like him, and he would try to be like you, then who's going to be you and who is going to be him? Like the Nefesh HaChaim writes, to give a person a perspective on how chashuv, on how valuable your tefillah, your prayers are. He says, never waste a single prayer, because you should know that since the beginning of time, there has never been this prayer uttered in the entire history of the world. There never was a person like you, who's going through whatever you're going through in your life, who has the abilities and the talents and the skills and the heart and the soul that you have. It's never been this particular time of the day, and therefore your tefillah that you're about to say right now has never, ever, ever been expressed or prayed or uttered in the world. Do you know how valuable that prayer is? Do you know how important it is to be able to get the words out and say your blessings and your praises to Hashem? That's how valuable you are. The bracha that we are giving to our children on Friday night, which is Kesimcha Elokim Ke'Ephraim Menashe, Hashem should make you like Ephraim and Menashe. That as Ephraim was the younger brother but got treated like the older brother, didn't say a word to make his younger brother feel bad. And like Menashe was the older brother and didn't receive the main blessing, didn't complain a bit or get jealous, because they realized that each one is special in their own way. We want that our children should understand as well. That's what it means to be a special, unique individual here in this world. Where did they learn this from? They're coming from such a lineage of generations of people that fight and argue and are jealous and get upset and despondent when they don't have exactly what they want. Where did they learn this from? The only Rabbi in life was Yosef Asad. And Yosef is the one, as we spoke about on Shabbos in the drasha, Yosef is the one who went through the ringer. From the time that he was 17 years old till 22 years later, we're talking about when he's 39 years old, some of the best parts of his life were taken up being thrown away by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, acting as a slave in the house of Potiphar, ending up in the dungeon for 12 years with rats crawling all around him. And Yosef Asad, never once, when he reveals himself to his brothers, never once tries to rub it in their face that, you see, all my dreams came true. Never once does he want to shame them or to embarrass them. He does everything within his power to save their face. Why? Because at the end of this week's Parsha, after Yakov Avinu dies, the brothers start getting very nervous. And they think to themselves, you know what? Okay, Yosef was playing Mr. Nice Guy all this time. Even he hates us though. We ruined his life. But our father was alive, so he didn't want to make our father feel bad. So he was being so nice to us. He's giving us brachas. He gives us a piece of land. He helps us to get into Egypt. Even without the green card, it said it's fine, we could be there. But now Yaakov, our father, is dead. Now there's no one to protect us anymore. So probably Yosef is now going to take it out on us after all these years. He's going to take revenge, that grudge that he's probably been holding underneath all this time. He's going to get us. And they started getting very nervous. Vayelchu gam echav vayiblu lefanav. The brothers come before Yosef and they fall before him. We're your slaves, whatever you want, we'll do. Yosef. And Yosef says over the following words to his brothers. Al tira'u. Do not fear. You think I'm changing my tune over here? I showed you love from the beginning, it will continue. Ki asachas Elokim ani. Do you think that I'm in place of Hashem? V'atem chashavtem alai ra. You thought to do bad to me. You had all these terrible thoughts about me. You wanted to get rid of me, send me away, never see me again. Elokim chashava l'toiva. However, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took all of your thoughts, all of the negative, everything you want to do wrong to me, and He turned it all around and He made it all good. Says Rashi, Ki asachas Elokim ani. Am I in place of Hashem? Shema bimkoimayani. And you think that I'm in place of God? Bibmia. How could you say such a thing? Even if I'd want to do anything bad to you, I don't want to, but even if I'd want to do anything bad to you, klum ani yochol, I can't do a thing. Because look at this. You had all these thoughts to do terrible things to me. But Hashem took all those thoughts and He converted them into good. So how could I myself do bad to you? If all of you tried to do bad to me, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu switched it around and made it into good, so even if I'd want to do bad to you, I'm all by myself over here. How in the world could I go against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one man, and make your life miserable? Yosef realized, as we said on Shabbos, Yosef realized that every single thing that is happening in his life is the rebirth Shalom. Every step along the way in his 22-year journey that he had to go through, with being thrown into the pit and being sold as a slave, and so on and so forth, it's all the journey that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was putting him through in this world. Why? Only to make him better. Only to make him greater. As the Rav Hirsch writes in the beginning of the Parsha, the beginning of this week's Parsha, it's called a Parsha Nistama, it's stuma, it's closed. What does that mean? The famous words in Rashi over here. Every Parsha, there's always a break between the end of one Parsha and the beginning of the next Parsha. It's usually about 9 spaces between each and every Parsha. This Parsha, there's no space. It's a runon from last week into this one. That means that Yakov Avinu, going back into Yaakov's life, there was not a single minute for Yakov Avinu to catch his breath. He goes from 22 years of misery, separated from Yosef, thinking that Yosef is dead. Finally, he sees Yosef once again, and what ends up happening? So those 17 years that we have from the seeing Yosef until the beginning of this parsha, which is the end of Yaakov Avinu's life, are the 17 most peaceful years that Yaakov has ever had. And then we're going to go from those peaceful years into Yaakov's death, which is going to carry the Jewish people into the Gullus, into the exile of Egypt. Says Rav Hirsch, you would have thought that after Yaakov has 17 wonderful years of life, we can just bask in pleasure and relax and enjoy his son Yosef and be redeemed once again as a Navi, as a prophet, and have HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shechina in his life. You would have thought for sure, let there be a break before we get into the Gullus, before we get to the exile. Let there be a break like at the end of every parsha. Why does it just keep going, running straight through? So Rav Hirsch says an amazing thing. He says it's coming to teach us the following. And that is that it looks like the 17 years that Yaakov Avinu had were the best years of his life. It's what made him who he was. But the reality is it's not true. It's the other 130 years in the life of Yaakov Avinu. The years of struggle, the years of hardship, the years of challenges, the years of marrying 2 wives, of love and the father-in-law, the years of running from Esav, the years of not knowing where his son Yosef was, the years of horror and almost depression. Those years of hardship that Yaakov Avinu have, those were the formulating years of his life. Those are the years that made Yaakov Avinu the Yaakov that he was. Yaakov fights with the angel, and only then is he called Yisrael. He's not called Yisrael when he's taking it easy, sitting back and enjoying the nachas from his son Yosef. It was only the effort and the hard work that he had to expend that made Yaakov into the Yaakov. And therefore, it's a runon of his life. From all those 100 and something years, then the years of pleasure that he had, just to relax, vacation for 17 years, and then we go straight into the Gullus. You're not Yaakov because of the 17 years, you're really Yaakov because of the 100 years that came before that. Because that which a person goes through, those challenges of life, is what makes them who they are going to be. Yosef Asad, who was the son of Yaakov Avinu, he's in Mitzrayim all by himself. He's got nobody around to give him any chizuk, no support. And yet he emerges after all of that. And he tells his brothers, don't think that I went down when I was here in Egypt. On the other hand, it's because of my experiences in Egypt, in this gullus, in this exile, all by myself, that I solidified my relationship with the Rabbi Shalom, and I became who I became. And therefore, you had intention to do wrong to me. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's working all of the wheels behind the scenes, it was all for my benefit, that I should become the great Yosef Asad. I went to a watch store today to get my watch band fixed. And in the store they had a screen, and they're showing a video of a watch that was taken apart piece by piece. There's like hundreds of little pieces lying on the table. And the expert watch technician comes in, and with his tools he begins picking up one piece at a time, and he begins to put the whole entire watch back together, a masterpiece. Can never imagine how many pieces there are just underneath the surface of your watch. And as I'm watching the watch show, I begin thinking to myself, could you imagine that's just one watch? And that's just all the pieces that are there. And you have one expert technician. He's so perfect in his work. He knows exactly where every single piece goes, in order that when you put on the face and you look at it, it's going to be ticking round and around and around to tell you what time it is with precision. That's just a watch. That's just something you wear on your wrist. Whether it's for fashion or it's because you want to know what time it is, it's something small. but the amount of ingenious effort that goes into it and the skill to make that watch work is enormous. On the surface, we are just the face of the watch. We see our lives going on. We see things that are taking place. The wheels, however you should know, are turning behind the scenes. There are thousands and millions of pieces in everybody's life that are turning and being put inside with precision. And it could be that it's going back generations, like the Ramchal writes. Why do people suffer in this world? If Hashem is so kind, Hashem is so benevolent, and He loves each and every one of us like a father loves his children, why are so many people struggling and suffering and going through hardships in this world? Says the Ramchal in Derech Hashem, you should know that every single one of us that is sitting here tonight or watching there from the privacy of your home is a Gilgul Neshama. They are a reincarnated soul. And those neshamas that we have inside of us today come from maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, all different places. And everybody's neshama has different tikkunim, has different things that it has to fix and correct or be corrected in this world. And therefore we go through things that don't make any sense to us sometimes. Because our neshama from a previous life has to cleanse and purify and fix itself here in this world. There's so many parts behind everybody's life. There's so many different little pieces, but you don't have to worry, because there's an expert technician who's putting every piece into place. That's the rewinish. Yosef Asad was telling his brothers, you thought that what you're doing to me is bad. You tried to afflict me. You tried to get rid of me. You tried to play watchmaker in my life. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu has all the tools. And everything that you did to turn this way, HaKadosh Baruch Hu turned back this way. Every second hand that you thought wasn't working, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it work just perfect and fine. So then is it any chiddush, is it any surprise to us that the sons of Yosef Asad, Menashas and Ephraims, who at the most pivotal moment in their history, receiving one of the final brachas from the Zayda, from their grandfather, Yakov Avinu, who has everything in his heart, all of his love, all of his good feelings towards them, when things go awry and Yaakov changes hands and the bracha turns out differently, is it any chiddush, is it a surprise that they remain absolutely silent? They don't say a word. Menashas doesn't complain and Ephraim doesn't gloat, because they know that there's a watchmaker behind everything, who's turning all of the pieces to make sure that everything fits in and runs, not on Swiss timing, but on His timing, on HaKadosh Baruch Hu's timing. And therefore they were makabel, they accepted, just like they saw their father Yosef. They saw their father reveal himself to the brothers. They saw how much he didn't want to hurt their feelings and make them shameful and embarrassed. They saw he kissed every one of the brothers. The same brothers who sent Yosef down to Egypt, he kissed them all, he loved them. And they realized that's the way of a Jew. The way of a Jew is, he is somebody who will constantly do the bidding and the call of the Ribbono Shel Olam, because he recognizes whatever it is that's taking place in his life, it's all from Elohim. I don't get jealous. I don't bear a grudge. I don't feel bad for myself. I don't wish that I had somebody else's life. There was once a Rabbi that I had who used to live here in Los Angeles, Shlomo Holland, and he told us that he once was he went to fundraise from a very, very wealthy individual in Los Angeles. A man who had a huge, gigantic house, the manicured lawns, who knows how many dozens and dozens of rooms, 6-car garage for every one of his $100,000 plus cars. And Rabbi Holland comes into the house, and they meet and they schmooze and they talk. He was having a project in mind that he wanted this man to donate to. And at a certain point, when the man wanted to speak privately with Rabbi Holland, with nobody else around, he said, Rabbi Holland, come here, please. I want to talk to you privately. And he says to him, you probably think that I'm like the happiest guy in the whole world. I have money, I have cars, I have a house, I have a wealthy business and profession. I'm well known, I'm a philanthropist. You probably think that I'm one of the happiest people around. He looked at Rabbi Holland in the eyes, and with the saddest look he said, I'm probably one of the most depressed and saddest people you will ever meet. My marriage, falling apart. My children, falling apart. This one's on drugs, this one's doing this one's running around the world with somebody else. My business, you don't know how much fighting is going on in the office between this one and that one. You don't know the cases that are against me, the legal cases. I have not a minute of respite, of peace, or of happiness. The money cannot buy you that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows exactly what He's doing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sets up the case for every single person, gives them what they need. When a person is makabel, when they accept from the rewinish Shalom that Hashem's the master watchmaker, He's making all the parts work in the right way, then they have no tainas, they're not upset with people. They don't complain, they don't argue, they don't bear grudges, they don't hold animosity towards another person, not at all. They let everything go and they put themselves in Hashem's hand. This is the brach we give to our children. You should be like Ephraims and Menashas. You should be like people who recognize that everything that's happening in your life, it's all Elokim, it's all Hashem. You should be people that understand your own inner value, your intrinsic worth, who you really are, so you don't get jealous of other people that are not you. On the other hand, be proud of yourself, be satisfied with yourself, see the good that you have in your life, and be proud of your brother and your sibling also. I often think sometimes there's a few singers that are out there in the world today of Klal Yisrael. And it's a family of talent. But one brother made it big. One of them is like superstar. His name's all over the place. He's made 20 albums in his life. He's worth millions and millions of dollars. Everybody knows his name. There's the other brother. Got the same last name, but he doesn't have the same first name. He tried to make one album, it didn't go. He tried to make another album. So they sang a song once at a wedding. I always think to myself, imagine how that other brother feels. They all sat around the same Shabbos table when they were kids. They all sang the same zmiras, and the father said, "Oh, Habibi, you sound so good. Keep singing." He said it to all of his children. But somewhere down the road, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had a plan for one who's going to go on to become a superstar, and the other one is going to have a more simple life. He won't be famous. When he walks down the street, no one will know he is. He'll come to shul sometimes and say, "You're not a daven from the Ummah, you want a daven?" Maybe the one who's not famous, maybe the one who's not worth the millions, maybe the one who doesn't walk down the street and gets hounded by fans everywhere that he goes, maybe he's got a better life. Has more time with his wife, more time with his children, less stress. But you know what? He probably inside, every time that his brother comes out with a new album, oh, another album. How many albums is this guy going to make already? Heard enough of him. Maybe, maybe not. But the bottom line is that if a person will be happy with what they have, and a person will be happy with who they are, then you could be happy for yourself, and you could be happy for Ephraim as well. There was once a Rosh Yeshiva from Eretz Yisrael who came to America fundraising, and he was going around from town to town, neighborhood to neighborhood, and he would just go and he would knock on people's doors and he would try to raise funds for his yeshiva. One day the door opens to a gigantic palatial estate, and lo and behold, one of his old friends from high school is standing at the door. And the Rosh Yeshiva who came from Israel, his clothes were a little bit ragged. The situation at home was not so great financially. His yeshiva is failing, at least financially anyway. And he's got to schlep around from one place to another, make himself like a beggar, trying to snore for a little bit of money. He suddenly sees his friend standing there in this gigantic doorway, fancy clothing. You can see into the back already behind him, the chandeliers and the marble floors. And he sees the grounds and he sees the fancy cars sitting in the front over there. And at that moment, he's suddenly filled with such a jealousy for the friend who seems to have it all in this world. But at the same exact time that he's thinking that, the man with all the money, with the golden coins falling out of his pockets, the man with the cars that are worth more than most people's homes, with more money in the bank than he knows what he could do with it, he's looking at his friend, the Rosh Yeshiva, and he thinks to himself, wow, I remember we were in high school together. We were like the same. We were both guys and we joked around in class. We didn't take it so seriously. Nobody ever thought we'll become anything in learning. He went on to become a Rosh Yeshiva. And he begins calculating that means how many years he must have been in yeshiva, and then koilel, how much Torah he must know. Wow. Look at me, I'm just a rich guy, but this man is a Talmud Chacham. He's a scholar and a sage. He has a whole yeshiva. So you have two people, both living their lives. That's the way that the wheels of life turn for them. And each one wishes they were somebody else. Bless your children, they should be like Ephraim and Menashas. And the brach is, be happy who you are. Be happy with what you have. Be happy for your siblings, they have who they are, what they have. Be happy for your friends, for your neighbors, for your family, for everybody around. Let everybody be who they're supposed to be. And when you give that bracha to your children, but like Yosef and like Yakov, you have to live that bracha as well. You can't want your children to be happy-go-lucky and be satisfied with who they are if you yourself sit around with your wife and say, oh, I can't believe you got a new car. Well, he always gets an aliyah in shul because everybody knows that he gives money. Really bothers me, she says. It really bothers me. How many new shaitos can this lady get? I haven't got a shaitel in 3 years. What's going on over here? So if the kids hear this conversation coming out of our mouth, the brach of Ephraim and Menashas, it's not a bracha. Has no weight. Has no sincerity. So when we live the lives of a Yakov who realized that his whole life was only valuable because HaKadosh Baruch Hu put him through everything, and Yosef was able to go down to Mitzrayim and not a single day bear a grudge against his brothers for 22 years. Again, we think about ourselves. If somebody wrongs us a little bit, they didn't smile at us. Oh, this person think they are. All day long. All day long, we're grumbling to ourselves. Who does this guy think he is? He doesn't smile. All day we're like that. Somebody cuts us off in line. What? Chutzpah. Chutzpah. Who are you? Somebody goes on a fancy vacation and we're busy trying to get enough to go to the Knott's farm for the day. Oh yeah, they always have to go on these fancy vacations, do these fancy... Ephraims Menashas. Ephraim was the younger one, Menashas was the older one. And that's the bracha. The brach is whether you're younger, whether you're older, whether you're smarter, whether you are more handsome, whether you are more athletic or less athletic, whether you're richer, whether you're poor, it doesn't matter. Be happy who you are. And if you'll be happy who you are, other people will be happy for who you are as well. You'll be happy for others for who they are, and then people will exist in harmony. But you have to recognize Hakol bidei Shemayim, that everything is coming from Hashem. Somebody who will recognize that everything is coming from the rewinish Shalom, that Hashem is working the pieces of your watch with precision and being exact, never have to worry about anything, because we're in the hands of the greatest technician in the entire universe. We should be zeicha to raise our own children, Ephraims Menashas, but first we have to raise ourselves to be people that follow in the footsteps of Yakov, of Yosef, of Ephraim and Menashas, people that will live their lives always realizing and always believing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made me exactly the way I'm supposed to be. And He designed my life exactly the way it's supposed to be. Then I can be happy for myself, and then I can gladly be happy for others as well. Have a wonderful night, everyone. You're welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi Horowitz.
You're welcome. See you in person next week. I dare you.